We are here with David Azerrad. He's actually part of the Heritage Foundation, and he's one of the best speakers I've heard when it comes to the idea of the libertarian movement and conservatism, because obviously in culture today, there's a growing libertarian movement, but I generally would consider myself a conservative. So what's really the difference, and maybe which one makes more sense for our nation?
That's a good question, and there's a lot of confusion on the right because they're two distinct movements. They decided to come together in the 1950s to defeat communism. And what has happened is that in this alliance, the mind of conservatism was kind of colonized and taken over by the rhetoric of libertarianism. So there's a real problem amongst conservatives. The default rhetorical setting for us is to speak of less government, more liberty. Now, don't get me wrong. That is one component of what conservatism is.
Which I kind of like that idea.
So do I, especially with the government we have today.
Right.
That said, you cannot leave it at that. Because if the only two poles in your worldview are the individual and the state, and they're fighting for liberty, then why is it that you oppose the legalization of hard drugs, for example?
Sure.
Why are you opposed to prostitution? It makes no sense.
If it's just for an individual.
Consenting adults should be allowed to do what they want.
Sure.
So a conservative is someone who recognizes that individuals have rights and they are free, but then realizes that the individual is embedded in various communities. The first one is the family. Individuals don't drop from the sky ready-made one morning.
Right.
They're born to parents who raised them. These families in turn belong to churches. These churches are embedded by civil society, which in turn is embedded in a state, which in turn is embedded in a country. And a conservative is someone who thinks of the individual in relation to this, and also via the lens of an intergenerational compact. You and I are probably the same generation, but there's a generation that came before us, and here's the key one that will come after us.
Right.
And a conservative is someone who looks to the future. The mission statement for conservatism, I would say, is found in the preamble to the Constitution. It is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and
our posterity.
It's not just for us. We need to think about how these policies affect the future, the next generation.
Okay.
Are they sustainable?
So a libertarian makes sense for an individual, but maybe if there wasn't society, because we live in a culture and society, there's something we want to conserve, not just for us, but for the future generation. Okay, David, mind blown, I get it. Libertarian, conservative, it makes more sense for culture that we lean the direction of conservatism. Even though we like freedom, part of a conservative mindset, we want to make sure we have something to give the next generation.